Peak Week protocol discussion with Trevor the Diet Coach. I'm Dr. Tony Huge. I prepare for bodybuilding competitions really quickly in as little as 10 days. So the peak week is absolutely critical for me, but it can get extremely complicated. In this video, I want to talk about the beginner's guide, or some of the things the beginner should consider in a bodybuilding competition for peak week, the week before the bodybuilding competition, to bring in the best conditioning, the lowest body fat, the least amount of water under the skin, the most muscle definition, and the most fullness. First, I think that it's a mistake to overcomplicate it, because I've seen many people, and it's very common for people, when they overcomplicate it, to actually go the other direction, to mess up and end up holding a lot of water and their muscles coming in looking flat instead of full and round and tightening the skin. And for that reason, I think the beginner's peak week protocol, and Trevor, tell me if you think I've got anything wrong or if I missed anything, should be very simple, of low carbohydrate to no carbohydrate for the first 4 days of the week, and then adding in the carbohydrates the last 3 days up to the competition, so that the body super compensates, so you also get the last 4 days, or the first 4 days of that week, as a fat burning, which means that it would also be moderate to low fat, and probably high protein for those first 4 days of the week. And the carbohydrate days, we drop the fat really low. We'd have most of our calories from carbohydrates, and the protein could actually be a lot lower those last 3 days. So that's the macronutrient ratio general approach for a beginner. The carbohydrate sources, protein sources, usually we're trying to use faster protein sources like white fish, egg whites. We do need some healthy fats, so we have things like whole eggs. Maybe before bed earlier in the week, we have things like steak. As it gets closer to the competition, we want to be really careful not to be bloated in the stomach, not to eat foods that cause inflammation, usually dairy and wheat and hard to digest proteins, and food allergens and things that are commonly cause food sensitivities, like carrageenan that's in a lot of liquid products that are processed, including things like almond milk, yogurt, things like dairy products that need to stay mixed in mixed state, stay preserved. And then we have the sodium, potassium. For a beginner, I think it's usually best for them to keep all of their minerals fairly high throughout the week. As it gets more advanced, we manipulate the mineral ratios, namely the sodium and potassium. But for the beginner, I think the biggest mistake they could make is not having enough potassium and not having enough sodium, and all the rest of the minerals too, very important. But those are usually the ones that the bodybuilder, magnesium for comfort, to add in and have plenty of, especially since potassium, the large source of potassium, is from fibrous vegetables, and since we're not going to eat a lot of that right before the competition because we don't want to be bloated, then we probably need to substitute the potassium, because the potassium will help shuttle those carbohydrates into the muscle as we're eating the carbohydrates the last 3 days. Weight training, usually you don't want to train really hard and break the muscle down too close to the competition. So the day before the competition, we certainly don't want to crush the muscle. There's not enough time for the muscle to recover before the competition. It can also, hard training right before the competition, within a few days before the competition, can cause the muscles to look softer because of the inflammation that you're causing. You don't want to have any inflammation in your body. Inflammation will make you hold water and make your muscles look softer. So you may also want to consider anti-inflammatory supplements, something like turmeric in large doses, CBD, and of course mostly avoiding foods that cause inflammation. Generally, we don't want to eat a lot of protein powders up close to the competition. Generally, we don't want to eat much dairy and wheat. I talked about that already. Water. We want to drink a lot of water up to, in my opinion, the day before the competition.
Okay.
I cut water out closer to the actual show. I don't start lowering water intake the day before, because my body adjusts really quickly. If I start dehydrating myself the day before, I'm going to be really dehydrated the day of the show, and it's going to be counterproductive. I'm not going to be able to fill out the muscles. So I decrease water the morning of the show. I drink very little, if no water. But at the night before, I will have drank a lot of water. especially because the water is necessary to help flush out the intestines. If you're dehydrated, you can't poop, and if you can't poop, then you're gonna have all that waste built up in your stomach, making you look bloated. That's why I also take laxative the night before the competition, earlier in the evening preferably, that way I'm guaranteed to go to the bathroom in the morning. The magnesium citrate, I believe is the version of magnesium. Liquid magnesium over the counter is my favorite. Hard to get in a lot of countries though. So any laxative works, so long as you understand the timing with your body. If you need a faster laxative, like you're the morning of the competition and you don't feel like you have to go to the bathroom, drinking coffee can help, which also helps pull water out of the body, acts like a diuretic, helps you go to the bathroom. And then putting glycerin stick, which is made for laxative purposes, and they're really cheap, but it's a stick of glycerin. You stick it up your butt. The further up you get it, the better. You hold it in, and it makes me have to go to the bathroom in 15 minutes. It's really fast to flush out my intestines. And then I also have a bidet at my house, so if I'm doing a local competition, I can shoot water up my butt and let it flush out my intestines, make my waist really tight and small, so I can do poses like the vacuum and suck my stomach in tight. You know what? This episode, let's just have me be talking about the peak week beginner's protocol, and then let's do a separate episode of Trevor the Diet Coach's peak week general protocol. In future videos, I'll discuss the intermediate and the more advanced protocol, but I just wanted to give some really easy pointers for a lot of the first-time bodybuilders that message me that want to know what they should be thinking about and the different components of a peak week.